Epistle to the Romans, Session 53，羅馬人書註釋第53講。羅馬書第5章3到4節，不但如此，就是在患難中也是歡歡喜喜的，因為知道患難生忍耐。第4節，忍耐生老練，老練生盼望。上一講呢，我哋講到呢啲患難係指在基督裏嘅，為咗基督嘅緣故嘅患難，唔係所有人間嘅患難。These tribulations bear the fruit of patience。呢一種嘅患難呢，係會結出忍耐嘅果子㗎。我哋而家繼續。Patience is not the passive quality which we often associate with this word。忍耐唔係我哋一般諗到忍耐嘅時候所想到嗰種嘅被動嘅性質。It is endurance and constancy。呢度講緊係堅忍同埋不變。有啲嘅參考經文，我哋嚟讀。Refer to Matthew chapter 10 verse 22。馬太福音10章22節。並且你們要為我的名被眾人恨惡，唯有忍耐到底的，必然得救。Romans 2:7，羅馬書第2章第7節，凡恒心行善，尋求榮耀尊貴和不能朽壞之福的，就要永生報應他們。2 Corinthians 1:6，哥林多後書第1章第6節，我們受患難呢，是為叫你們得安慰得拯救。我們得安慰呢，也是為叫你們得安慰，這安慰能叫你們忍受我們所受的那樣苦楚。2 Thessalonians chapter 1 verse 4，帖撒羅尼迦後書第1章第4節，甚至我們在上帝的各教會為你們誇口，都因你們在所受的一切逼迫患難中，仍舊存忍耐和信心。Hebrews chapter 10 verse 36，希伯來書第10章36節，你們必須忍耐，使你們行完了上帝的旨意，就可以得着所應許的。James 1:3，雅各書第1章第3節，因為知道你們的信心經過試驗，就生忍耐。And finally, 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 6，最後彼得後書第1章第6節，有了知識，又要加上節制；有了節制，又要加上忍耐；有了忍耐，又要加上虔敬。所以呢個忍耐係指一種嘅堅忍。This constancy works approvedness。呢種嘅不變嘅堅定嘅忍耐呢，就會成就出 approvedness， 被考驗咗嗰種嘅中文整翻做老練。The triedness 就被考驗過嘅性質 ，which is proved by testing， 係經過考驗而證實㗎。我哋睇一啲嘅參考經文 ，refer to 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 9， 參考哥林多後書第2章第9節。為此我先前也寫信給你們，要試驗你們，看你們凡事順從不順從。2 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 2， 林後第8章第2節，就是他們在患難中受大試煉的時候，仍有滿足的快樂，在極窮之間還格外顯出他們樂捐的厚恩。2 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 3， 林後第13章第3節。你們既然尋求基督在我裏面說話的憑據，我必不寬容，因為基督在你們身上不是軟弱的，在你們裏面是大有能力的。寬容忍耐。Philippians 2:22， 腓立比書第2章第22節。但你們知道提摩太的明證，他興旺福音與我同勞，待我像兒子待父親一樣。明證經過咗一種嘅證明 考驗嘅證明。And this approvedness works hope， 呢種嘅證實嘅老練呢，就成就盼望㗎。In delineating the progression, it is represented as having its inception in tribulation and its terminus in hope。當保羅勾畫出呢個嘅進程嘅時候，起點係患難，終點係盼望。We glory, he says, in hope, verse 2。喺第5章第2節呢，使徒保羅我哋喺盼望中有榮耀或者誇耀。And we glory in the tribulation。我哋在患難中誇耀 ，because they initiate a sanctifying process which ends in hope。因為患難係開始咗一個成聖嘅過程，而呢個終點係盼望㗎。第3節、第4節 ，He has described a circle。使徒保羅描述咗一個嘅循環 ，beginning with hope， 從盼望開始 ，and therefore ending with hope。而因為佢從盼望開始，所以係以盼望作終點㗎。This drives home the lesson that the glorying in tribulations is not something dissociated from rejoicing in hope of the glory of God。呢段呢就再一次嘅強調咗我哋要學嘅功課，就喺患難中嘅誇耀或者榮耀呢，係同因為盼望上帝嘅榮耀而歡喜快樂呢，係連上關係嘅，係不無關係嘅。It is not even coordinate or complementary。佢甚至乎唔係相輔相成添。Glorying in tribulations is subordinate。喺患難中嘅誇耀係從屬嘅。We glory in tribulations because they have an eschatological orientation。我哋在患難中誇耀，因為呢種嘅患難係有着一種嘅末日嘅末世嘅導向㗎。They subserve the interests of hope。我哋嘅患難呢係促進我哋盼望呢方面嘅好處㗎。We are reminded of 1 Corinthians 15:19。咁樣讓我哋諗起哥林多前書第15章19節咁樣講嘅。我們若靠基督，只有在今生有指望，就算比眾人更可憐。And advised that the complexion imparted to the perplexities of this life, as in themselves the opposite of the glory to be revealed, is a complexion determined by the eschatological destination of the people of God。呢處教導我哋話呢，我哋今生嘅困惑所帶上嘅色彩呢，本身就係與將來要顯明嘅榮耀嘅相反詞嚟㗎。而呢種嘅色彩呢，就係因為着上帝嘅子民，佢嘅終點係喺末日㗎。The present of the believer's pilgrimage must never be abstracted from its relation to its ultimate sequel, the glory of God。信徒們嘅旅程嘅現今呢，係唔可以抽離，唔可以脫離佢最後嗰個結果就係上帝嘅榮耀，唔可以抽離脫離佢呢個旅程同埋最後嘅結果上帝榮耀之間嘅關係㗎。Verse 5，羅馬書第5章第5節，盼望不至於羞恥，因為所賜給我們的聖靈將上帝的愛澆灌在我們心裏。Here we are told the reason why this hope is well grounded and secure。呢處聖經話俾我哋聽，點解呢個盼望呢係有堅固嘅基礎，係穩固嘅。呢個嘅理由係乜嘢？ It is not a hope that will put us to shame。呢一個盼望唔會使我哋羞恥嘅 ，and not one with respect to which we need to entertain any shame。關於呢個盼望，我哋唔需要考慮到有任何嘅羞恥感㗎。On the contrary， 相反嚟講 ，it is one in which we may boast。我哋應該誇耀呢個盼望㗎 ，one which we may confidently protest against all adversaries。呢種嘅盼望，我哋可以好有信心嘅喺所有敵對我哋嘅對手嗰處去誇耀或者係 抗衡嘅。It will not disappoint us or prove illusory。呢個盼望唔會使我哋失望，亦都唔會係虛幻嘅。Why？ 點解呢？ Because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts through the Holy Spirit who was given unto us. Verse 5. 因為所賜給我們的聖靈將上帝的愛澆灌在我們心裏。第5節。This is one of the most condensed statements in the Epistle。呢句説話呢係羅馬書裏邊差唔多係最濃縮嘅句子之一。It is a striking example of the combination in few words of the objective grounds and subjective certainty of the believer's hope。呢處係一個好奇妙嘅例子，用咁少嘅字句去結合着信徒盼望嘅客觀基礎同埋佢主觀嘅確實性。The love of God， 上帝的愛 is not our love to God， 唔係我哋對上帝嘅愛 ，but God's love to us， 乃係指上帝對我哋嘅愛嘅。參考經文verse 8第8節，唯有基督在我們還作罪的時候為我們死，上帝的愛就在此向我們顯明了。Chapter 8verses 35 and 39， 第8章35節同埋39節，尚能使我們與基督的愛隔絕呢？難道是患難麼？是困苦麼？是逼迫麼？是飢餓麼？是赤身露體麼？是危險麼？是刀劍麼？39節，是高處的，是低處的，是別的受造之物，都不能與我們與上帝的愛隔絕。這愛是在我們的主基督耶穌裏的。If we should suppose the former， 假如我哋認為第5節嘅上帝的愛係指我哋對上帝嘅愛嘅話呢？ The foundation of the assurance and of the security which this verse bespeaks will be destroyed。咁樣就會破壞咗喺呢一節經文所講出嘅嗰種嘅確據同埋安穩嘅基礎。What is it that gives solidity to this hope and guarantees its validity？ 係乜嘢令到呢種嘅盼望可靠穩固，而且係保證咗呢個盼望嘅合理性呢？ It is a love of God to believers， 係因為就係上帝對信徒們嘅愛 ，a love that suffers no fluctuation or reverse。呢種嘅愛唔會遭受到任何嘅起伏或者係翻轉嘅。Hence the hope which it promises is as irreversible as the love itself。因此，上帝嘅愛所應許嘅盼望同埋個愛本身都係完全唔可能翻轉嘅。This love of God must, however, come within our apprehension and appropriation if it is to be the ground of assurance and evoke this confident glory. Verse 2。但係呢一個嘅上帝的愛呢，假如佢要作為咁樣嘅確據嘅基礎，而引發出咁樣嘅充滿着信心嘅誇耀嘅話呢，第2節呢，咁呢個上帝的愛必須由我哋所理解、所領受。This is the significance of the shedding abroad in our hearts。在我們心中嗰個澆灌嘅重要性就在此。The expression shed abroad， 澆灌呢個表述嘅方法呢 indicates the abundant diffusion of this love， 就指出呢個愛係好豐富嘅流露出嚟㗎。The hearts of believers are regarded as being suffused with the love of God。保羅話信徒嘅心呢係有着上帝嘅愛充分嘅流露。It controls and captivates their hearts。上帝嘅愛控制咗佢哋嘅心，亦都係得着到佢哋嘅心。And the Holy Spirit as the Spirit of God and of Christ， 聖靈身為上帝嘅靈，基督嘅靈，參考羅馬書第8章第9節。The Spirit who searches all things, yea, the deep things of God。 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 10。聖靈喺哥林多前書第 第2章第10節嗰度話呢，係聖靈參透萬事，就是上帝深奧的事也參透了。Is the person who sheds abroad this love， 就係呢一位聖靈，呢個位格將呢個愛澆灌出來。And he is the seal of its efficacy and genuineness。聖靈亦都係呢個上帝嘅愛嘅有效性同埋真實性嘅印證。It is the Holy Spirit as given to us。呢位聖靈係所賜給我們的聖靈 ，and for that reason indwelling and governing。因此呢，聖靈係內住我們心中，係掌管我哋嘅心嘅。Who imparts the assurance of this love？ 呢一位聖靈賜下呢個上帝嘅愛嘅確據。He bears witness to the spirit of believers that they are the children of God。8:16， 聖靈與信徒們嘅靈作見證，佢哋係神嘅兒女㗎。羅馬書第8章第16節，聖靈與我們的心或者我們的靈同證，一同作見證，我們是上帝的兒女。All the elements of this verse conspire with and converge upon one another。呢一節第5節各個唔同嘅部分呢，都係一齊嘅協力匯合在一起 ，to guarantee the certitude of which the text is redolent。為咗要保證着呢節經文所充滿着嗰種嘅確實、確信嘅氣味 ，certitude，the unchangeable love of God， 上帝嘅不變的愛。The effectual agency of the Holy Spirit as donated to us。聖靈作為所賜給我們的靈，佢有效性的工作。And the heart, the determining center of thought and life as the sphere of the Spirit's operation。仲有聖靈工作嘅範圍就係人嘅心，即係決定人思想同埋行為嘅人嘅核心。This confluence 呢幾方面嘅匯合 would make anything other than exultant rejoicing incongruous。呢種匯合呢，就只可能使我哋歡喜快樂，不然的話呢，就唔一致啦。To impugn such confidence is to impugn God's veracity。假如要指責呢種嘅確信呢，就係指責上帝嘅真實性。Verses 6 to 11，羅馬書第5章6到11節。因為我們還軟弱的時候，基督就按所定的日期為罪人死。為義人死是少有的，為人死或者有減作的。唯有基督在我們還作罪人的時候為我們死，上帝的愛就在此向我們顯明了。現在我們既靠着他的血稱義，就更要藉着他免去上帝的憤怒。因為我們作仇敵的時候，且藉着上帝兒子的死得與上帝和好，既已和好，就更要因他的生得救了。不但如此，我們既藉着我們主耶穌基督得與上帝和好，也就藉着他以上帝為樂。Verse 6，第6節，因我們還軟弱的時候，基督就按所定的日期為罪人死。By what considerations do we know of this love of God, referred to in verse 5 as shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Spirit？ 喺第5節所指嘅上帝的愛，就係聖靈澆灌在我們心中嗰個愛啊！我哋因為考慮到咩嘅因素而認識呢個愛呢？This is not an irrelevant or irreverent question。呢個問題唔係離題㗎，亦都唔係不恭敬㗎。It is a question of the process of revelation and redemptive accomplishment by which this love of God has been demonstrated。呢度所問到嘅就係上帝要彰顯佢個愛所用上嘅啟示嘅過程，同埋成就救贖嘅過程。It is the answer to this question that is provided by verse 6。第6節所提供嘅就呢個問題嘅答案啦。第 The demonstration required is furnished by the death of Christ. 所需要有嘅證明，對上帝嘅愛證明，就係由基督嘅死所提供。For while we were yet weak, in due season Christ died for the ungodly. 因為我哋係還軟弱嘅時候，基督就按所定的日期，為不敬虔嘅人死了。This is the force of the conjunction for with which the verse begins. 第6節一開始嘅時候講嘅因為嗰個因呢個連接詞嘅意思就在此。It is explanatory or confirmatory. 呢個因為係解釋嘅或者係證實嘅因為。If we take the love of God for granted, we shall not appreciate the sequence of the apostles' thought. 假如我哋認為上帝嘅愛係理所當然嘅話呢，我哋就唔會體會到使徒保羅嘅思路裏邊嘅先後嘅順序。But when we assess our weakness and particularly our ungodliness， 但係當我哋評估到我哋嘅軟弱，特別係我哋嘅不敬虔嘅時候呢 then we discover both the need and the marvel of the proof God has given。 咁我哋就會發現到我哋嘅需要同埋呢上帝所提供嗰個證據係幾咁奇妙。What looms up in our conviction when our ungodliness is properly weighted is our detestability and the wrath of God。 當我哋好正確嘅去衡量到我哋嘅不敬虔嘅時候，喺我哋心裏信念所浮現出嘅就係我哋幾咁嘅可憎可惡同埋上帝嘅憤怒。And it is impossible to take God's love for granted。 所以我哋係唔可能將上帝嘅愛睇係理所當然㗎。That God could love the ungodly。 上帝之所以能夠愛不敬虔嘅人 ，far less that He did love them。 唔單止係咁，更重要係上帝具體嘅去愛呢啲不敬虔嘅人 ，would never have entered into the heart of man。 咁樣嘅可能性係唔會讓人嘅心裏邊所考慮到嘅。參考經文 1 Corinthians 2 verses 9 and 10， 哥林多前書第2章第9到第10節，上帝為愛他的人所預備的，是眼睛未曾看見，耳朵未曾聽見，人心也未曾想到的，只有上帝藉着聖靈向我們顯明了。On that background, the text must be understood。 我哋了解呢一段經文必須有呢個嘅背景㗎，即係我哋係幾咁嘅可憎，幾咁嘅軟弱不敬虔。The marvel of God's love is that it was love to the ungodly。 上帝嘅愛嘅奇妙就係向不敬虔嘅人嘅愛。And here is the proof。 證據在哪裏呢？在這裏 ，Christ died for the ungodly。 基督為罪人、為不敬虔的人死了。我哋下一講繼續講第6節。